The thick envelope sat on Lily's kitchen counter for 3 days before she found the courage to open it. Bills usually came in thin envelopes with plastic windows. This was different. Heavy cream-colored paper with her name written in neat handwriting. When she finally tore it open on Friday evening, a set of old-fashioned keys tumbled onto the counter with a metallic clatter. "Ms. Lily Carter," the letter began, "we regret to inform you of the passing of your great-aunt Elizabeth Carter. As her sole surviving relative, you have inherited her estate, including her residence at 1487 Oakwood Lane in Millfield." Lily blinked at the page. Great-aunt Elizabeth? The name stirred only the faintest memory. A tall, thin woman with piercing eyes who had visited once when Lily was maybe 7 or 8. Her parents rarely spoke of that side of the family, and when they did, it was in hushed tones that immediately stopped whenever Lily entered the room. "This can't be right," she muttered, flipping through the other papers. Property deed, tax records, a hand-drawn map with directions to Millfield, a small town about 3 hours from her apartment. At 34, Lily's life hadn't exactly gone as planned. Her graphic design career had stalled at a small agency where her ideas were constantly overlooked. 6 months ago, her boyfriend of 3 years had moved out, taking half their furniture and leaving her with the full rent. The timing of this strange inheritance felt almost like a cosmic joke. She grabbed her laptop and searched for Millfield. The town's website looked like it hadn't been updated since the early 2000s. Pixelated images of a town square with a gazebo, announcements for events that had passed years ago, and a population count of just under 4,000 people. After another search for Elizabeth Carter Millfield, Lily found a brief obituary dated 5 years earlier. 5 years. The house had been sitting empty all this time while the lawyer tracked her down. The obituary mentioned that Elizabeth had been a retired librarian who valued her privacy and was preceded in death by her entire family, except distant relatives. No photo accompanied the sparse text. Lily picked up one of the keys, large and old-fashioned, with an ornate head and heavy teeth worn smooth by years of use. What kind of house would this fit? Certainly not anything built in the last few decades. She should have been excited. A free house was nothing to sneeze at, even in a town she'd never visited. But something about the situation made her uneasy. Why had it taken 5 years to find her? Why had no one in town bought the property? And why had her parents been so reluctant to speak of this side of the family? The following Monday, Lily requested a week off from work. Her boss barely looked up from his computer as he approved it. Just another sign that her presence there hardly mattered. She packed her small Honda with a suitcase of clothes, her laptop, cleaning supplies, and enough food for a few days. At the last minute, she added a flashlight, first aid kit, and the baseball bat her ex had left behind, just in case. The drive to Millfield took her through rolling countryside that grew increasingly remote. Cell service dropped to a single bar, then none. The fall colors were reaching their peak, with red and golden leaves creating tunnels over the winding back roads. Under different circumstances, Lily might have found it beautiful. The town itself appeared suddenly around a curve, a collection of buildings clustered around a central square, just like in the website photos, though the real version showed signs of economic struggle. Empty storefronts with faded for lease signs, a gas station with only 2 pumps, a diner called Betty's that seemed to be the only place with a decent number of cars parked outside. Following the hand-drawn map, Lily turned onto a narrow road leading away from town. After a mile of dense woods, a rusty mailbox marked the turn onto a gravel driveway nearly hidden by overgrown bushes. Her car bumped and rattled down the uneven path until the trees cleared, revealing her inheritance. The house stood 3 stories tall, a Victorian farmhouse with peeling gray paint and a wraparound porch sagging in several places. Dormers jutted from the steep roof, their windows like watchful eyes. A stone chimney rose from one side, and elaborate wooden trim, what her mom would have called gingerbread, decorated the eaves, much of it rotting or missing pieces. "You have got to be kidding me," Lily whispered, putting the car in park and staring through the windshield. The yard around the house had long since surrendered to nature. Waist-high grasses swayed in the afternoon breeze. Ancient oak trees cast the property in shadow, their massive roots buckling what once might have been a garden path. At the edge of the clearing stood an old barn or carriage house, its door hanging from a single hinge. Lily sat in her car for 10 full minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel as she considered turning around and driving straight back to her apartment. She could tell the lawyer she wasn't interested. Let the town have the property. Pretend the letter had never arrived. But something, curiosity, desperation, or perhaps just the strange pull of family connection, made her open the car door. The air smelled of fallen leaves and approaching rain. A crow called from somewhere nearby, the sound echoing across the clearing. With each step toward the house, Lily's shoes grew damper from the overgrown grass. The porch steps groaned under her weight, the wood soft in spots. She tested each board of the porch before putting her full weight on it. Making her way slowly to the front door, a massive thing of dark wood with a stained glass window at eye level, depicting a tree with spreading branches. The first key she tried didn't fit. The second turned with effort, the lock mechanism inside protesting after years of disuse. When the door finally swung open, it released a wave of stale air that smelled of dust, old paper, and something Lily couldn't quite identify, a sweetness like dried flowers. She hesitated at the threshold, suddenly aware of how alone she was. No one knew exactly where she'd gone except her boss, who barely remembered her name. Her phone showed no service. The nearest neighbor was probably back in town, miles away. This is how horror movies start, she muttered to herself, but stepped inside anyway. The entryway opened to a grand staircase that curved up to the second floor. Doorways to the left and right led to what looked like a formal dining room and a sitting room. Every surface was covered in a thick layer of dust, but beneath it, Lily could see quality furniture, solid wood pieces carved with the same attention to detail as the house's exterior trim. She moved carefully from room to room on the first floor, opening curtains to let in light. Despite the years of abandonment, there was no sign of vandalism or animal intrusion, strange for a house that had stood empty for so long in the countryside. The kitchen at the back of the house featured an ancient cast-iron stove and a sink with a hand pump. No modern appliances in sight. A door beside the pantry led to a root cellar, but Lily decided that could wait for daylight exploration. As she returned to the entry hall, her attention was drawn to dozens of framed photographs hanging on the walls. Through layers of dust, serious faces looked back at her. Women in high-necked Victorian dresses, men with impressive mustaches, family groupings on the very porch she'd just crossed. Had Great Aunt Elizabeth really been the last of this entire family line except for Lily? A floorboard creaked overhead and Lily froze. The sound came again, a distinct footstep from the second floor. "Hello?" she called, her voice sounding small in the large house. "Is someone there?" No answer came, but Lily was certain she'd heard movement. She gripped the flashlight tighter, wishing she'd brought the baseball bat in from the car. "I'm the new owner," she called more firmly. "This is private property, still nothing." Just as she was convincing herself it was the old house settling, a door upstairs slammed shut with enough force to rattle the photographs on the walls. Lily's heart hammered in her chest. Every instinct told her to run, to get back in her car and never return. Instead, she found herself climbing the stairs, one careful step at a time, the aged wood protesting beneath her feet. The upstairs hallway stretched in both directions, with doorways leading to what must be bedrooms. At the far end, a door stood slightly ajar, moving gently as if disturbed by a breeze. But there was no breeze inside the house. All the windows were shut tight. "I'm coming in," Lily announced, surprised by the steadiness in her voice. She pushed the door open slowly to reveal what appeared to be the master bedroom. A four-poster bed dominated the space, covered in a faded quilt. Heavy curtains framed tall windows that overlooked the front yard. A dressing table with a tarnished mirror sat in one corner, its surface covered with hairbrushes, perfume bottles, and what looked like cosmetics, as if the owner had simply stepped away for a moment, not abandoned them for years. The room was empty of people, but on the bed lay a large leather-bound book that Lily was certain hadn't been there when she first glanced in. She approached it cautiously, half expecting it to disappear or move. It was a photo album, opened to a page with a black and white photograph of a young woman standing in front of the house, which looked new and well-maintained in the image. Written beneath in faded ink, "Elizabeth, 1952. As Lily stared at the face of her great aunt as a young woman, the temperature in the room seemed to drop. The hair on her arms stood up and her breath fogged in front of her face. Outside, The wind picked up suddenly, sending dead leaves skittering across the porch and whistling through some unseen gap in the house's weathered exterior. The light began to fade as clouds moved over the sun. Lily closed the photo album and backed toward the door. Something about this house felt watchful, aware of her presence in a way that brick and wood shouldn't be. Yet mixed with her unease was a strange sense of belonging, as if the house had been waiting for her all this time. As she reached the doorway, a small piece of paper fluttered to the floor from between the pages of the album. Lily picked it up, finding a note written in cramped, hurried handwriting. "If you're reading this, your family. Look behind the library bookcase. Tell no one you're here. They're still watching." Lily slept in her car that first night, the cryptic note tucked safely in her pocket. The house, her house now technically, felt too watchful, too aware of her presence. As darkness fell, the silhouette of the Victorian farmhouse against the night sky looked like something from another time, a place where modern rules didn't quite apply. Morning brought a thin autumn sun and with it a measure of courage. Lily splashed water on her face from a bottle, ate a granola bar and stared at the note again. "Look behind the library bookcase. Tell no one you're here. They're still watching." The handwriting matched some of the photo captions she'd seen, spidery, tight letters that slanted sharply to the right. Great Aunt Elizabeth's warning from beyond the grave. "Library bookcase," Lily muttered to herself. "First I need to find the library." She approached the house again, this time with her baseball bat in one hand and determination in her heart. The key turned more easily in the lock today, as if the house had decided to welcome her in. Inside, dust motes danced in the beams of morning light streaming through the windows. The eerie feeling from yesterday had faded somewhat, replaced by the more practical concerns of a homeowner facing decades of neglect. Water stains marked one corner of the ceiling. The wallpaper bubbled and peeled in spots. Mouse droppings dotted the baseboards. Lily moved methodically through the first floor again, opening curtains and windows to let fresh air circulate. The house had clearly been grand once. 12-foot ceilings, intricate crown molding, hardwood floors that gleamed where the sun hit them despite years without polish. At the back of the house, past the kitchen, she found a room she'd missed yesterday. Double pocket doors, partially open, revealed walls lined with bookshelves from floor to ceiling. The library. Well, that was easier than expected, Lily said aloud, her voice breaking the silence. The room was smaller than the others, but perfectly proportioned, with a bay window overlooking what might once have been a garden. A leather reading chair sat angled toward the window, a small table beside it still holding a teacup, as if Elizabeth had just stepped away for a moment rather than been gone for years. Lily approached the shelves, running her fingers along the spines of books. Many were classics, Dickens, Austen, Bronte, but others were more surprising. Texts on local history, genealogy, and what appeared to be handwritten journals labeled by year. The collection of a librarian, Lily supposed, organized by some system she couldn't immediately discern. The note had mentioned a bookcase, but which one? The entire room was lined with them. Lily examined each section carefully, looking for anything unusual. One unit near the corner seemed slightly different, the wood a shade darker, the shelves a bit newer than the rest. She pulled a few books from it, checking behind them, but found only the solid back of the bookcase. Frustrated, Lily sank into the reading chair, raising a cloud of dust that made her sneeze. As she leaned back, something caught her eye. A faint rectangular outline on the floral wallpaper behind the bookcase, visible only from this lower angle where sunlight hit it just right. Heart quickening, Lily approached the bookcase again and pushed against its side. It didn't budge. She tried pulling instead and felt a slight give. Encouraged, she gripped the edge more firmly and pulled harder. With a scraping sound, the entire unit swung outward an inch or two, revealing a gap. "No way," Lily whispered, excitement temporarily overwhelming her apprehension. It took all her strength to pull the heavy bookcase far enough to create a gap she could slip through. Behind it was a narrow door, painted to match the wallpaper, with no handle, just a small keyhole. Lily returned to the collection of keys she'd received. None looked small enough for this lock, but she tried each one anyway. As expected, none worked. Frustrated, she examined the door more closely and noticed something odd. Small scratches around the keyhole, as if someone had tried to pick it. Back in the library, Lily searched for anything that might serve as a key or lockpick. The desk drawers yielded only old stationery and dried-up pens. But when she examined the teacup on the side table, she found a small object inside. A delicate silver key, tarnished almost black with age. The key slid into the hidden door's lock with a satisfying click. The door swung inward, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. Lily hesitated. The sensible thing would be to turn back, to call the lawyer and ask questions, or at least to wait for daylight. But curiosity pulled at her, and something else too, a sense of responsibility. Elizabeth had left this for her to find, had waited 5 years in death for Lily to come and uncover whatever secret she'd kept hidden. Using her phone's flashlight, Lily took the first step down. The wooden stairs creaked beneath her weight but felt solid enough. The air grew cooler as she descended, carrying a musty smell of old paper and something else, a chemical odor she couldn't identify. At the bottom of the stairs, Lily found herself in a room roughly the size of the library above, but with a much lower ceiling that made her duck instinctively. Her flashlight beam revealed a setup that looked like something between an old photography darkroom and a researcher's office. A long table ran along one wall, covered with trays, bottles of chemicals, and what appeared to be developing equipment. Filing cabinets lined another wall. In the center of the room stood a large wooden table covered with papers, folders, and notebooks, all arranged in meticulous stacks. Most striking, though, were the walls themselves. Every inch was covered with photographs, newspaper clippings, and handwritten notes, all connected by red string pinned from one item to another, creating a vast web of information. Lily swept her light across the display, trying to make sense of it. The photos showed people from town. She recognized the diner and town square in the backgrounds, and many featured the same 3 or 4 men in various settings. Newspaper headlines jumped out at her. Millfield celebrates factory opening. Local man dies in hunting accident. Property dispute settled out of court. One section seemed to focus on a particular incident. A large photograph showed a car pulled from a lake surrounded by emergency personnel. Next to it, a headline read, "Prominent local businessman drowns in tragic accident." The man's face had been circled in red, and beneath it, in Elizabeth's handwriting, "No accident, murder." Lily's blood ran cold. What had her great-aunt been investigating down here all alone in this house? A notebook lay open on the center table, filled with Elizabeth's tight handwriting. Lily began to read, struggling sometimes to make out the words in the dim light. June 15th, 1972. Witnessed another meeting behind the factory. Same 3 men. Money changed hands. TH seemed upset, gesturing at the woods. Could they be expanding again? Need to get closer. July 3rd, 1972. TH came to the library today, asked unusual questions about property records from the 1940s, seemed nervous when I offered to help. I found the records after he left. 3 parcels of land transferred to the company for nominal sums after owners died unexpectedly. Pattern emerging. August 28, 1972. Followed dump trucks to the old quarry last night. They're disposing of something there after dark. Took photographs but too distant to be clear. Need better equipment. The entries continued, spanning years of observation and investigation. Elizabeth had been tracking something happening in Millfield. Something involving the town's leading citizens and a company that seemed to hold unusual power. The last entry was dated just days before her death, according to the obituary Lily had found. April 2018. They know I've been watching. Car followed me home from grocery store. Same black sedan I've seen behind the factory. Have organized all evidence in case something happens. Hidden room unknown to them. If I die suddenly, it wasn't natural causes. Everything goes to Carter family line. Only blood relatives can be trusted. They're still here, still operating. The chemicals are still being dumped. The land is poisoned now. Lily set the journal down with shaking hands. Her great-aunt had been investigating environmental crimes, possibly even murders, and believed she was in danger because of it. Had Elizabeth really died of natural causes as the obituary claimed, or had someone ensured her silence? A soft thump from upstairs made Lily jump. She held her breath, listening intently. The sound came again, definitely footsteps on the floor above. Someone was in the house. Quickly, Lily gathered the journal and a folder containing what looked like the most recent photographs. She slipped back up the stairs, closed and locked the hidden door, and pushed the bookcase back into place as quietly as possible. The footsteps had moved to the front of the house. Through the library's doorway, Lily caught a glimpse of a man in a dark jacket moving through the entrance hall. He wasn't being particularly stealthy, but he definitely wasn't making his presence known either. Lily ducked behind the desk, clutching the journal to her chest. Her phone showed no service, no way to call for help. The baseball bat was still by the front door where she'd left it. "Hello?" a man's voice called. "Anyone home?" Door was open. Lily remained silent, weighing her options. She could make a run for it through the kitchen and out the back, but she'd have to pass several doorways where she might be seen, or she could confront him, pretend she was just cleaning up her new property. But if he was connected to whatever Elizabeth had been investigating... "I know someone's here," the voice continued, closer now. "Car outside. Thought you might want to know. Folks in town are talking about the Carter place being occupied again. Word travels fast in Millfield." The warning in Elizabeth's note echoed in Lily's mind. "Tell no one you're here." They're still watching, but it was too late for that now. Her presence was already known. Taking a deep breath, Lily slipped the journal and photos under a cushion in the reading chair. Whatever happened next, she needed to protect Elizabeth's work. She straightened her clothes, ran a hand through her hair, and stepped into the hallway to face her visitor. The man standing in her entrance hall was in his 30s, wearing a sheriff's deputy uniform, his hand resting casually on his belt near his weapon. When he saw Lily, his expression changed from wariness to something she couldn't quite read. "Ms. Carter?" he asked, his voice softer now. "Yes," Lily replied, working to keep her voice steady. "This is my house." "Who are you?" "Deputy Tom Wilson," he said, removing his hat. "Just doing a welfare check. We noticed a car with out-of-town plates. This place has been empty a long time." "I inherited it recently," Lily said. "Just arrived yesterday to check it out." The deputy nodded, glancing around at the dusty interior. Elizabeth was quite a character. Kept to herself mostly. He looked back at Lily, his eyes narrowing slightly. "You planning to stay long?" Something in his tone made Lily's skin prickle with unease. Was this a friendly visit from local law enforcement or something else? "I'm not sure yet," she answered carefully. "Just getting a feel for the place." "Lots to clean up," Deputy Wilson nodded again. "Well, welcome to Millfield. You should stop by the station if you need anything. Or the diner. Betty makes a mean apple pie." He turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Miss Carter? Might want to lock your doors at night. Old houses like this, you never know what might get in." As the front door closed behind him, Lily leaned against the wall, her heart pounding. The deputy's visit might have been innocent, but combined with Elizabeth's warnings, it felt like a message. She was being watched. And now she needed to decide what to do with the secrets hidden in her great-aunt's house. After the deputy left, Lily double-checked all the doors and windows. The house suddenly felt less like an inheritance and more like a trap. She retrieved Elizabeth's journal from under the cushion and carried it upstairs, along with the folder of photographs. In the master bedroom, she pushed a heavy dresser against the door before settling on the bed to examine her findings more carefully. The afternoon sun provided enough light to read by, casting long shadows across the faded wallpaper. The photographs in the folder showed the same locations from different angles. An old factory at the edge of town, a fenced area behind it that sloped down to a creek, and what appeared to be large drums being loaded onto trucks at night. Several images captured 3 men in conversation, one tall and thin with glasses, another heavy-set with a distinctive bald spot, and a third who appeared in fewer photos but seemed to be giving orders to the others. Elizabeth had labeled this third man HM with a note. Mayor since 1998. The current mayor of Millfield was orchestrating whatever Elizabeth had been documenting. No wonder she'd been cautious. Lily turned back to the journal, flipping through entries that spanned nearly 50 years. Elizabeth had begun investigating in the early 1970s after noticing an unusual number of fish dying in the creek that ran through her property, the same creek that passed behind the factory. Over decades, she documented strange illness patterns in town, property changing hands after unexpected deaths, and increasingly obvious environmental damage that no one seemed willing to acknowledge. The factory, originally built for textile manufacturing, had apparently shifted to chemical production in the 1980s, though no permits for such a change appeared in public records. Most disturbing were Elizabeth's notes about Thomas Harker, labeled as TH in earlier entries. He had been an employee who threatened to report the illegal dumping, only to die in what was ruled a hunting accident just days later. Elizabeth had photographed the scene before police arrived. The angle of the wound didn't match the official explanation. The most recent entries focused on water testing Elizabeth had conducted herself, sending samples to a lab 2 counties over under a false name. The results showed alarming levels of industrial chemicals, some linked to rare cancers that had claimed several townspeople over the years. As darkness fell, Lily used her phone's flashlight to continue reading. The final pages of the journal contained a list of names, people who had died under questionable circumstances, all connected in some way to the factory or its owners. At the bottom of the list, Elizabeth had written, "They know I'm collecting evidence. Car outside again tonight. If anything happens to me, contact Sheriff Robert Daniels, not local. State Police, Western Division. His father worked the Harker case. Told me once he never believed the hunting story. Sheriff Robert Daniels. Not Deputy Wilson, but a state police sheriff. Someone outside the local power structure. Someone Elizabeth had trusted." Lily's phone battery was at 15% now. With no electricity in the house and no charger in her car, she needed to be careful. She took photos of the most important journal pages and the list of names before shutting it off completely. Sleep came in fitful bursts that night, with every creak and groan of the old house jolting Lily awake. Around midnight, car headlights swept across her bedroom wall as a vehicle drove slowly past the property. It returned 20 minutes later, this time stopping briefly at the end of the driveway before moving on. By dawn, Lily had made a decision. She couldn't leave, not with Elizabeth's life work hidden in this house, not with people still potentially suffering from whatever the factory was dumping. But she couldn't stay here either, vulnerable and isolated. She needed supplies, information, and most importantly, a working phone to contact Sheriff Daniels. After a quick breakfast from her dwindling supplies, Lily hid the journal and photographs under a loose floorboard she'd discovered in the closet. She changed clothes, ran a brush through her hair, and practiced a casual smile in the tarnished bathroom mirror. Just a new homeowner visiting the local town, nothing suspicious about that. The drive into Millfield took less than 10 minutes. In daylight, the town looked both quaint and shabby, a place that had seen better days but was holding on to a certain small-town charm. American flags hung from lampposts and a banner across Main Street announced the upcoming Harvest Festival. Lily parked near Betty's Diner, which seemed to be the social center of Millfield. Through the windows, she could see most tables occupied despite the early hour. Taking a deep breath, she pushed open the door and stepped inside. Conversations dimmed momentarily as heads turned toward the newcomer. An older waitress, Betty herself presumably, approached with a coffee pot and a practiced smile. "Morning, honey. Just one today?" Lily nodded, returning the smile as she was led to a small table near the window. Perfect for watching the town while appearing to simply enjoy breakfast. "You must be Elizabeth Carter's niece," Betty said as she poured coffee without asking. "Tom mentioned you'd arrived. Whole town's talking about it." "Great niece, actually," Lily corrected, unsettled by how quickly news traveled. "I didn't know her well. The inheritance was a surprise." Betty nodded sympathetically. Elizabeth kept to herself, especially in those last years. "Shame what happened to her mind at the end." Lily looked up sharply. "Her mind?" "Oh, the paranoia," Betty said, lowering her voice as if sharing a confidence. "Mayor Henderson tried to help, offered her a place at Sunny Pines, our assisted living facility. But she refused, started making all sorts of wild accusations." Betty shook her head. "Dementia's a terrible thing. Mayor Henderson, HM, in Elizabeth's notes. The man in the photographs overseeing the midnight dumping operations." "What kind of accusations?" Lily asked, keeping her tone casual as she stirred sugar into her coffee. Betty waved dismissively. "Oh, nonsense about the water being poisoned, people being followed. Said the factory was killing people. Mind playing tricks, that's all." She handed Lily a menu. "Special today is blueberry pancakes. Made them myself this morning." As Betty moved away to greet another customer, Lily's mind raced. The town had written Elizabeth off as mentally unstable, making it easy to discount her claims. Had that been deliberate? A way to protect whatever was happening at the factory? While waiting for her food, Lily connected to the diner's Wi-Fi, slow but functional. She quickly searched for Sheriff Robert Daniels State Police and found a recent article about his promotion to head of the Western Division's Environmental Crimes Unit. The article mentioned his particular interest in industrial pollution, Cases. Elizabeth had chosen her potential ally well. Now Lily just needed to find a way to contact him securely. As she ate her pancakes, which were admittedly excellent, Lily observed the diner's patrons. At the counter, Deputy Wilson sat chatting with a heavy-set man whose balding pattern matched one of the men from Elizabeth's photographs. At a corner table, 3 men in suits conducted a hushed conversation, occasionally glancing her way. Lily paid her bill and asked Betty for directions to the nearest hardware store. "Need some cleaning supplies for the old house," she explained with a smile. "Place is covered in dust." "Henderson's Hardware is just down the block," Betty replied. "Tell Frank I sent you, he might give you a discount. Henderson's, the mayor's family business, apparently." Lily thanked her and left, feeling eyes on her back as the door swung shut. The hardware store was smaller than expected but well stocked. A bell jingled as Lily entered, and a man emerged from the back room, tall and thin with glasses, instantly recognizable as the second man from Elizabeth's photographs. "Frank Henderson," he introduced himself, extending a hand. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Heard we had a new resident." "Welcome to Millfield." Lily shook his hand, fighting to keep her expression neutral. "Thanks. Just picking up some basics to start cleaning the place." "The Carter house," he nodded. "Been empty a long time. Shame about your aunt." "Great aunt," Lily corrected automatically. "Did you know her well?" Something flickered in Frank's eyes. "Small town. Everybody knows everybody." Elizabeth was unique, had some unusual ideas toward the end. Lily gathered cleaning supplies while making small talk about the house renovations she was planning. Frank seemed particularly interested in how long she intended to stay and whether she'd explored the entire property yet. "That old place has all sorts of nooks and crannies," he remarked as he rang up her purchases. "Basement's probably full of junk. I'd be happy to send someone over to help you clear it out." "The basement, where Elizabeth's hidden room was located." "That's very kind," Lily replied. "But I prefer to sort through things myself. Family history, you know." Frank nodded, but his friendly demeanor had cooled slightly. "Well, offer stands. By the way, there's a town meeting tonight at the community center. 7 o'clock. Good way to meet your new neighbors." As Lily loaded her purchases into her car, she noticed Deputy Wilson parked across the street, watching her. When their eyes met, he tipped his hat but made no move to leave. They were watching her, just as they'd watched Elizabeth. On her way back to the house, Lily made one more stop at a small electronics shop on the outskirts of town, where she purchased a prepaid phone with cash. The teenager behind the counter didn't seem connected to the town's power structure, and barely looked up from his own device during the transaction. Back at the house, Lily unloaded her supplies and immediately went to check the loose floorboard. The journal and photographs remained undisturbed. Using her new burner phone, she dialed the number for the state police's Western Division. "Environmental Crimes Unit, please," she requested when the operator answered. "I need to speak with Sheriff Robert Daniels." "I'm sorry, Sheriff Daniels is out of the office this week," came the reply. "Can someone else help you?" Lily hesitated. "It's regarding Elizabeth Carter from Millfield." He would know the name. A pause. "Hold, please." After several minutes of silence, a new voice came on the line, deep and authoritative. "This is Daniels. You mentioned Elizabeth Carter?" Lily took a deep breath. "My name is Lily Carter. Elizabeth was my great aunt. I've inherited her house and I've found her evidence. I think I'm being watched just like she was." Another pause. Longer this time. "Miss Carter," Sheriff Daniels finally said, his voice lower now. "I'm going to need you to listen very carefully. Don't trust anyone in Millfield. Don't tell anyone you've contacted me. I'm 3 hours away, but I can be there by nightfall. Can you secure yourself until then?" "I think so," Lily replied, glancing at the windows, the doors, the hiding places she'd found. "But they're watching the house. Stay inside. Keep the doors locked. If anyone tries to enter, call 911 and then call me right back at this number." He recited a direct line, which Lily memorized. "I've been building a case against that factory for years, but I've never had enough evidence. If what Elizabeth collected is still there, it's all here," Lily confirmed. "Photographs, journal entries, water test results. Decades of documentation." For the first time, hope crept into Sheriff Daniels's voice. "I'll be there tonight. Just stay safe until then." As Lily ended the call, she heard the crunch of tires on gravel outside. Moving cautiously to the window, she peered through a gap in the dusty curtains. 3 vehicles were coming up the driveway. Deputy Wilson's patrol car, a black sedan, and a truck with the Henderson Hardware logo on its side. Mayor Henderson himself stepped out of the sedan, straightening his jacket as he surveyed the house. They weren't waiting for nightfall. They were coming now, and Sheriff Daniels was 3 hours away. Lily's heart hammered against her ribs as she watched the 3 vehicles approach. Her mind raced through options, each one bleaker than the last. Running would mean abandoning Elizabeth's evidence. Confronting them seemed foolish against 3 men, one armed. Hiding might work temporarily, but they would surely search the house. She had minutes at most. Moving quickly, Lily grabbed Elizabeth's journal and the folder of photographs from their hiding place. She looked around desperately for somewhere to conceal them, somewhere they wouldn't think to look. The attic. Elizabeth had mentioned it in her journal, but noted that the entrance was hidden after a renovation in the 1960s. Lily had spotted what looked like a ceiling panel in one of the upstairs closets. Yesterday, footsteps crunched on the porch, steps as Lily raced upstairs, clutching the evidence to her chest. In the smallest bedroom, she dragged a chair to the closet and climbed up, pushing at the ceiling panel. It resisted, then gave way with a shower of dust and insulation. Reaching blindly into the dark space, she pushed the journal and folder as far as she could reach, then carefully replaced the panel. A heavy knock rattled the front door. "Ms. Carter? Deputy Wilson? Need to speak with you." Lily brushed dust from her clothes and took a steadying breath. Confrontation was inevitable now. Best to face it on her terms, not theirs. From the upstairs window, she snapped a quick photo of the 3 vehicles with her prepaid phone, then sent it to Sheriff Daniels with the text, "They're here now. 3 men." She tucked the phone into her sock, making sure it was silenced. Downstairs, the knocking came again, more insistent. Lily opened the door, careful to block the entrance with her body. "Deputy Wilson," she acknowledged with forced calmness. "What brings you back so soon?" The deputy's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Mayor Henderson wanted to welcome you properly. And Frank here thought you might need help with some of those repairs we discussed." Behind Wilson, the mayor, shorter in person than he'd appeared in photographs, offered an equally insincere smile. Frank Henderson towered over both men, tools jangling from his belt. "That's very kind," Lily said. "But I'm in the middle of something right now. Perhaps tomorrow would be better?" Mayor Henderson stepped forward. "Now, Ms. Carter, we don't stand on ceremony here in Millfield. Neighbors help neighbors, and that roof of yours looks like it could use immediate attention." Lily noticed his eyes scanning the entrance hall behind her, searching for something. "Really, I appreciate the offer, but insist," the mayor cut her off, the pretense of friendliness slipping. "As mayor, I have certain responsibilities regarding building safety. Wouldn't want any accidents in that old house." The threat hung in the air, barely disguised. Deputy Wilson's hand rested casually on his weapon, while Frank jingled his tools again. A wrench that looked more like a weapon than a repair implement. Lily recognized the impossible situation. Refusing would only escalate things. She stepped back, allowing them entry. "I haven't had time to clean up much," she said, watching as the 3 men moved into the entrance hall. "Don't worry about that," Mayor Henderson replied, his attention clearly elsewhere. "Frank, why don't you check that roof support in the kitchen we discussed? Tom, maybe look at that electrical panel we were concerned about." They were splitting up to search the house. Lily followed Mayor Henderson as he wandered into the living room, running his fingers along dusty surfaces, peering behind furniture. "Your aunt was quite a collector," he remarked casually, lifting the corner of a rug with his foot. "Great aunt," Lily corrected automatically. "Did you know her well?" Henderson's mouth tightened. "Well enough. Elizabeth had difficulties in her later years. Became quite paranoid. Made some unfortunate accusations about prominent citizens. About me, in fact." "What kind of accusations?" Lily asked, though she knew the answer. He turned to look at her directly. "Nonsense, really. Something about the factory polluting the water. Claimed people were dying because of it." He shook his head sadly. "Dementia is a terrible thing." From the kitchen came the sound of drawers being opened and closed with increasing force. Frank wasn't being subtle about his search. Upstairs, heavy footsteps moved from room to room. I don't see how this concerns my roof, Lily said, unable to keep the edge from her voice. Henderson smiled thinly. Just being thorough. Old houses like this can be dangerous. Hidden problems. He stepped closer, dropping all pretense. Like hidden rooms, ice flooded Lily's veins. They knew about the secret room. How? Had they been watching her yesterday? Had they already searched the house while she was in town? I don't know what you're talking about, she managed. Don't play stupid, Miss Carter, it doesn't suit you. Henderson's voice hardened. We know Elizabeth kept records, documents, photographs. We know about the hidden room behind the bookcase. What we don't know is if you've found it yet. A crash from the library saved Lily from responding. Frank's voice called out, Found it! Bookcase was locked, but I got it open. Henderson smiled, all pretense gone. Sounds like we can get to business now. Heavy footsteps thundered down from upstairs as Deputy Wilson joined them, herding Lily toward the library. Inside, Frank had indeed forced the bookcase away from the wall, splintering the locking mechanism. The hidden door behind it stood ajar. After you, Henderson gestured to the narrow staircase. With no choice, Lily descended into Elizabeth's secret room, the three men following close behind. In the darkness, someone found a switch, and a single bulb illuminated the space. For a moment, all four stood in silence, taking in the wall of connected evidence, the laboratory equipment, the meticulous documentation of decades of environmental crimes. Well, Henderson said finally, his voice deceptively calm. Looks like old Elizabeth was even more disturbed than we thought. Frank moved to the wall, beginning to tear down photographs. We'll need to clear all this out. Fire hazard. Stop! Lily protested. This is my property. You have no right. Deputy Wilson's hand landed heavily on her shoulder. Actually, we do. Mayor declared this structure unsafe just this morning. Official town business. Henderson examined the chemicals on the developing table. Could be making drugs down here, for all we know. Tom, you might need to take Miss Carter in for questioning while we secure the premises. Lily's mind raced. They were going to destroy everything and silence her, just as they'd silenced Elizabeth. The difference was that Elizabeth had died of natural causes after her evidence was already hidden. Lily had no such protection. You killed her, didn't you? The words burst out before Lily could stop them. Elizabeth. Just like Thomas Harker and all the others on her list. Henderson's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. Elizabeth died of a stroke, Miss Carter. A tragic but natural end for a woman her age. He picked up a stack of photographs. As for these delusions about the factory, well, grief can make people believe strange things. The water tests don't lie, Lily insisted, desperate to keep them talking. Every minute they spent here was a minute closer to Sheriff Daniels' arrival. The chemicals in the creek, the cancer rates in town, it's all documented. For the first time, Frank looked uncomfortable. Hank, maybe we should just— Shut up, Henderson snapped. Carter, listen to me carefully. We're going to clean up this mess and you're going to leave town. Tonight. The house is structurally unsound, can't possibly be inhabited. We'll make you a fair offer for the property and everyone moves on. And if I refuse? Lily challenged. Henderson's smile returned, cold and confident. Then there might be another tragic accident in the Carter family. Old wiring in these houses can be so dangerous. The threat hung in the air, undisguised and chilling. Lily looked from face to face. Henderson's calculating menace, Wilson's professional detachment, Frank's growing discomfort. Upstairs, a door slammed. All four froze. You expecting someone? Wilson asked, hand moving to his weapon. No, Lily replied honestly, heart leaping with hope. It was too soon for Sheriff Daniels, but maybe someone else had come. A neighbor, a delivery. Any interruption would help. Check it out, Henderson ordered Wilson, who nodded and climbed the stairs. The moment stretched as they listened to Wilson's footsteps crossing the library above. Then silence. Tom, Henderson called after a minute. No response. Damn it. Henderson gestured to Frank. Go see what's happening. Frank hesitated, looking increasingly nervous. Hank, maybe we should just go. This is getting out of hand. Breaking in was one thing, but go. Henderson hissed. As Frank reluctantly headed up the stairs, Henderson turned his attention back to Lily, pulling a small revolver from inside his jacket. Family heirloom, he explained conversationally, as if they were discussing antiques. Not department-issued like Tom's, no records. Useful sometimes, Lily backed up until she hit the evidence wall. Photos and newspaper clippings crinkled behind her. Henderson kept the gun pointed casually in her direction, while gathering papers from the central table with his free hand. "You know," he said, "your aunt actually came to me first with her concerns. Back in '72, I was just getting started at the company then. My father ran things." He shook his head at the memory. "I tried to explain to her that sometimes progress has costs. The factory brought jobs, prosperity. Small sacrifices were necessary." "People dying isn't a small sacrifice," Lily countered, watching his every move. Henderson shrugged. "Matter of perspective. The many versus the few." He glanced toward the stairs. "Frank's taking too long." Footsteps sounded above again, but heavier than before. "Different." Henderson raised the gun more deliberately. "Who else knows you're here?" "Everyone," Lily lied. "I posted about inheriting the house online. My friends know exactly where I am." A shadow appeared at the top of the stairs. Henderson swung the gun toward it. "Frank?" "Police, drop your weapon." The commanding voice was unfamiliar to Lily, but the effect on Henderson was immediate. His face drained of color. "This is a private matter, officer," Henderson called, recovering quickly. "Town business." "I said drop your weapon, Henderson, now." The mayor's hand tightened on the gun. His eyes darted from the stairway to Lily and back, calculating odds. "You're making a mistake," he said. "You don't understand what's happening here." "Last chance," the voice warned. "Drop the weapon or I will fire." For a terrible moment, Lily thought Henderson might shoot anyway. Then, with a curse, he lowered the gun to the floor. "Kick it away," the voice commanded. Henderson complied, sending the revolver spinning across the concrete floor. Lily lunged for it, securing it before backing away. Down the narrow stairs came a tall man in a state police uniform, weapon drawn and steady. Behind him followed Deputy Wilson and Frank Henderson, hands secured behind their backs. "Sheriff Daniels," the officer introduced himself to Lily. "Got your message. Made good time." Relief flooded through Lily, making her knees weak. "You said 3 hours." Daniels smiled grimly as he secured Henderson's hands with cuffs. "Always say more than you need. Tactical advantage." He glanced around the hidden room, taking in the wall of evidence. "Looks like Elizabeth came through after all." "This is ridiculous," Henderson blustered. "You have no jurisdiction here. This is a town matter." "Environmental crimes cross jurisdictions," Daniels replied calmly. "And I've had a warrant ready for months just waiting for probable cause." He turned to Lily. "Your text gave me that. 3 more officers are upstairs securing the scene. This is now a state police investigation." As Henderson was led upstairs, he turned back to Lily, his face twisted with rage. "You have no idea what you've done. This town needs that factory." "People's livelihoods on people's lives," Lily corrected. "That's what matters." When the 3 town officials had been removed, Daniel surveyed the room with something like reverence. "Elizabeth Carter contacted me 10 years ago with her suspicions. Not enough for a warrant then? Told her to keep collecting evidence." His expression softened. "Never thought she'd actually create all this. Amazing woman." "She knew they were watching her," Lily said. "She knew they might kill her." Daniels nodded grimly. "And they probably did. But she outsmarted them in the end. Got all this evidence safely hidden and made sure it would come to someone who might follow through." He looked at Lily with respect. I didn't do anything special," Lily protested. "Just found what she left." "You protected it," Daniels corrected, "and put yourself at risk to make sure justice was served. Don't minimize that." Outside, police radios crackled as more officers arrived. The quiet old house had become the center of what would clearly be a major investigation. "What happens now?" Lily asked. Sheriff Daniels carefully lifted a binder of water test results. "Now we build a case. Environmental crimes, conspiracy, obstruction of justice, possibly murder. Though that'll be harder to prove." He glanced at her. "We'll need your help. Your testimony about what happened today. Access to the evidence." Lily looked around the hidden room at her great-aunt's life work. What had started as an unexpected inheritance had become something far more important. A chance to finish what Elizabeth had started. To bring justice to a town that had suffered in silence for decades. "I'll help," she promised. "Whatever it takes." For the first time since arriving in Millfield, the old house didn't feel threatening. As Lily followed Sheriff Daniels upstairs, she sensed something else, almost like approval. As if the house itself, and perhaps Elizabeth's spirit within it, recognized that its secrets were finally serving their intended purpose. The truth was coming to light at last. The weeks following the arrests passed in a blur of police statements, evidence cataloging, and newspaper headlines. Lily extended her leave from work, renting a small apartment in the nearest city while the investigation unfolded. The old house remained sealed as a crime scene, yellow police tape fluttering from the porch railings like strange decorations. Sheriff Daniels called regularly with updates. "The case is bigger than we thought," he told her one evening, voice tired but satisfied. Henderson's cooperation opened floodgates. He's hoping for leniency. The mayor had indeed started talking once faced with the mountain of evidence against him. The chemicals dumped into the creek had come from illegal waste processing, far cheaper than proper disposal methods. The factory had been handling materials from companies across 3 states, charging full price for environmental compliance but spending almost nothing on actual safety measures. "What about the deaths?" Lily asked. Elizabeth's list had 17 names. Daniels sighed heavily. "Harder to prove, but we're working on it. Thomas Harker's case has been officially reopened." Henderson admitted they tampered with the scene. The Environmental Crimes Unit had taken water samples from wells throughout the area, finding contamination far worse than anyone had suspected. The state had declared a public health emergency for Millfield and surrounding communities. 1 month after the arrests, Lily returned to the house. The police tape was gone, the property released back to her custody now that all evidence had been documented and collected. She stood in the driveway, keys in hand, feeling strangely like a visitor rather than an owner. Inside, the house seemed different. Sunlight streamed through windows that had been cleaned by investigators. The hidden room behind the bookcase stood empty, its wall of connected evidence now residing in police storage. Even the dust seemed less oppressive somehow. Lily wandered from room to room, seeing the place with new eyes. Beyond its secrets and the pain it had witnessed, the house itself was beautiful. Solid bones beneath years of neglect, craftsmanship in every carved banister and stained glass window. Elizabeth had preserved it all, even while dedicating her life to uncovering the truth about Millfield. In the master bedroom, Lily found something she'd missed during her first frantic days. A photograph on the dressing table partially hidden behind larger frames. It showed a much younger Elizabeth standing proudly in front of the house, arm in arm with a man who must have been Lily's grandfather as a young man. The siblings were smiling, the house behind them freshly painted and well-maintained. This had been a home once. Before secrets and dangers, before Elizabeth's solitary crusade, it had been filled with family. The realization settled over Lily like a warm blanket. This wasn't just a house of horrors or a repository of evidence. It was her heritage, both the building itself and the courage Elizabeth had shown in protecting the truth regardless of personal cost. That evening, as Lily sat on the porch swing watching the sunset paint the overgrown yard in golden light, a car approached up the driveway. She tensed momentarily until recognizing Sheriff Daniels's vehicle. "Hope you don't mind the unannounced visit," he said, climbing the steps with a folder tucked under his arm. "Thought you'd want to see these right away." Inside, he spread documents across the kitchen table, test results from water samples taken from the creek running through the property, compared with Elizabeth's original findings. "She was right about everything," Daniels said, tapping the papers. "These compounds caused the cancer cluster in town. 3 specific chemicals, all traced back to the factory." Lily studied the reports, recognizing the validation of her great-aunt's work. "Will it be enough for convictions?" "More than enough." Henderson took a plea deal today. 20 years. Testimony against higher-ups at the corporate level. Daniels rubbed his tired eyes. Frank turned state's evidence immediately. "Deputy Wilson is fighting the charges, but with 2 witnesses against him, he doesn't stand much chance." "And the town?" Lily asked. "What happens to Millfield?" Daniels' expression softened with concern. "That's the harder part. The factory's been shut down permanently. Environmental cleanup will take years. Some residents will need ongoing medical monitoring." He hesitated. "There's anger, too. Some blame your aunt for destroying jobs. Others blame her for not speaking up sooner." "She tried," Lily said defensively. "Nobody would listen." "I know," Daniels nodded. "And more people are beginning to understand that. The younger generation especially. They've organized community meetings about rebuilding, finding new industries that won't poison their homes." After Daniels left, Lily stood in the library, running her fingers along the spines of Elizabeth's books. So many volumes on environmental science, toxicology, photography techniques, all tools in her decades-long battle for truth. The next morning, Lily drove into town, steeling herself for hostile glares or whispered comments. Millfield looked different now, subdued with for sale signs on several houses and businesses. The factory at the edge of town stood silent, its gates padlocked and plastered with government notices. At Betty's diner, conversations quieted briefly when she entered, then resumed at a slightly lower volume. Betty herself brought coffee without being asked, her earlier warmth replaced with professional politeness. "How are things?" Lily asked carefully. Betty's mouth tightened. "Town's divided. Some folks lost jobs when the factory closed. Others lost family to those chemicals over the years." She glanced around before adding in a lower voice, "My sister had that same rare cancer they're talking about in the papers. Died 3 years ago. Makes you wonder." Throughout town, Lily encountered similar mixed reactions. Resentment from those economically tied to the factory. Gratitude from families who'd suffered health consequences over the years. A woman stopped her outside the post office, grasping her hand tightly. "My husband worked there for 30 years. Died of liver failure last spring," she said, eyes bright with unshed tears. "The doctors could never explain it. Now we know why. Thank you for bringing this to light." By the time Lily returned to the house that evening, she'd made a decision. This inheritance had come to her for a reason, not just the property itself, but the responsibility that came with it. The following week, Lily met with contractors about renovations, historians about the house's architectural significance, and environmental experts about rehabilitating the creek that ran through the property. She negotiated a remote work arrangement with her surprised boss and began the process of relocating permanently to Millfield. 6 months later, as spring breathed new life into the landscape, the old Carter house had transformed. Fresh paint and historically accurate colors adorned the exterior. The sagging porch had been rebuilt, with the original gingerbread trim carefully restored. Inside, modern comforts blended respectfully with preserved Victorian features. The barn at the edge of the property had been converted into a community environmental education center, with displays explaining the water crisis and ongoing cleanup efforts. Local schools brought students for field trips to learn about environmental protection and the importance of corporate accountability. Elizabeth's journals, those not needed as evidence, had been carefully preserved and selectively shared, providing insights into both the town's history and one woman's dedication to truth. A small memorial garden near the creek honored those who had died from the contamination, their names no longer hidden in a secret room but acknowledged in the sunlight. On a warm Saturday in June, the Carter house hosted its first community gathering, a town meeting to discuss Millfield's future. People who had never visited during Elizabeth's lifetime filled the yard, sitting in folding chairs on grass now neatly trimmed. Sheriff Daniels attended, as did journalists from national environmental publications and representatives from clean industry companies interested in bringing new jobs to the area. As Lily welcomed guests onto the porch where she'd once stood terrified and alone, she caught glimpses of a town cautiously healing, former factory workers talking with environmental activists, elderly residents sharing memories of what Millfield had been before the factory changed everything. That evening, after the last visitors had departed, Lily sat in Elizabeth's reading chair in the library, the hidden door behind the bookcase now permanently open and repurposed as a small museum documenting the town's environmental struggle. On the table beside her rested a framed photograph, the one of young Elizabeth and Lily's grandfather, next to a recent newspaper with the headline, "Environmental Justice in Millfield, the Legacy of Elizabeth Carter." From being a mysterious inheritance that had terrified her, the house had become a home and a force for healing in a wounded community. The secrets it had sheltered were now in the open, serving their intended purpose. As dusk settled over Millfield, Lily could almost imagine Elizabeth sitting across from her, satisfied that her life's work had finally found its voice. The house that had kept secrets for decades now stood as a testament to the power of truth, however long buried, however fiercely opposed, to eventually find the light. Outside, the cleansed creek reflected the first stars of evening. Inside, Lily Carter turned on lamps against the gathering darkness, the warm light spilling from windows that no longer held secrets. Just the simple, profound comfort of a house that had finally found peace.